Did you know that according to FFtoday.com, we had a three-way tie for first place at kicker? Daniel Carlson, Younghoe Koo, and Jason Sanders. Today's guests will be breaking down this phenomenon for you. So we welcome you to Fantasy Football today. Adam Azer, Dave Richard, and Jamie Eisenberg, joined by the all-in kid, Jake Ciely from The Athletic. Good morning, Jake. What's up?
You said all-in kid or all-in kicker?
All-in kicker.
Oh I knew exactly what. As soon as you said three-way tie, I'm like, I know where he's going with this nonsense. I'm still happy to join this show, even though that you brought that off the top.
Yeah, Jake doesn't like kickers. He's all about band kicker. I actually did not know. I have never even seen that stat. Three-way. That's actually pretty impressive. Carlson, Koo, and Sanders tied for first.
Yeah, and then you mentioned the fact that like two of them, nobody even knew who they were. Like 5 weeks into the season,
I still don't know who they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but Koo, by the way, only played in 15 games. So per game, he's your number one kicker in fantasy. Dave and Jamie, what's up, guys? How we doing?
10.7 fantasy points per game for Younghoe Koo last year. That's pretty good.
It's pretty cool.
I'm like Justin Tucker, baby. I'm great. Let's go.
All right. Yes. And today on the show, we're going to talk about fantasy philosophies. How are your philosophies or strategies, whatever you want to call them? Philosophies is kind of alliteration, sort of. So we'll talk about how your strategies change in a 17-game season, tight end talk, how bullish are you going to be on the rookie wide receivers. We're really excited for this class, and a few other questions for Jake and for the guys, and phrases that people screw up. Yesterday or last night when I was recording FFT in 5, I said switch the flip instead of flip the switch. Jamie got on me on that pretty quickly. It was a verbal typo. I knew the phrase, but I asked people, what are some phrases that people commonly screw up? And we have some good ones for you. We'll share them. All right, Jake. So first philosophy question, 17-game season. Oh, by the way, follow Jake on Twitter at AllInKid. He's a senior writer for The Athletic and does great work over there as well. Does anything change for you with a 17-game season for the first time ever?
For the first time? I don't think it really does. The only thing that I probably think of in the back of my head is maybe even a little bit more lean to running backs in your draft to even stash, whether it's early bell cow, whether it's grabbing some options in the middle or whatever, because all I just keep looking at is year after year after year, who we're chasing in weeks 12, 13, 14, the Gaskins of the world, trying to figure out who the next Dolphins running back was going to be last year and all that type of stuff. Just, again, the reminder of how much change there is. And some people will argue and say that's a proponent for not drafting running backs and chasing the waiver wire. But with so many people doing it, I think that the attrition alone of what's probably going to happen in positions, you're going to suffer probably another injury or two. I'm just going to make sure I have the running back depth. That's really all it is. I'm not going to really change my draft strategy, my in-season strategy outside of just making sure I'm prepared running back wise, so I'm not trying to be the last guy getting, whoever it might be that's filling in on week 16 for my championship, or week 17 now for your championship.
And it dovetails nicely into the depth at wide receiver and quarterback for this year. Wide receiver is going to be super deep this year, especially when you consider the rookie class. Quarterbacks have been deep for a long time. I think that going after running backs early is still the way to go. I thought about does a 17-game season, does it make the elite tier quarterbacks a little bit more valuable? Because those are guys that tend to not get hurt. Dak Prescott, divert your eyes from him, forget about him. But does get a quarterback who in theory can get you.
Dave, we're having a little bit of trouble. It's not just me, right?
No.
Dave, we're having a little bit of trouble with your connection.
You're glitchy, buddy. You're glitchy.
Yeah.
What do you expect? It's been this way for a damn year.
No, it really hasn't. It's been pretty good for a year.
So what do I need to do? Do I need
elite level court? Backs are going to be very good.
You need elite level internet, man.
On this. Switch the flip on my.
Switch the flip. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So Dave was making the point about elite level quarterbacks. You want to finish that point?
No.
Okay. All right. Good.
I think it's a good point, though.
Well, which part of it? The part we heard, yeah, very good.
The part we heard, yeah. That it does kind of push up that top tier a little bit if you want to go after it.
Well, you talked about attrition at running back, so that I guess that my follow up to this 17-game season thing, Jamie, I'll throw it to you. You more worried about injuries at the position, more pounding that they have to take? Could that scare people off of running back and say, well, then they're more likely to get hurt now?
I mean, obviously there's more risk of those guys getting injured because they get injured to the 16-game season already. So I mean, you just give them an additional game and, additional carries, guys like Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb and those guys that are going to, probably be close to leading the league in carries, doing different things than, or not doing different things, not the pass catching backs that'll take a little pressure off of them because of the direct hits that they'll take. So, I think to kind of piggyback on what Jake was saying is, and I mentioned this on the FFT and 5, it may lend itself to taking a few more handcuffs. Not necessarily your own handcuffs, but somebody else's handcuffs, but just taking some of these guys and just being patient with them, that knowing that it may not take until week 8, week 9, week 10, if you're able to carry those guys. Like Jake was saying, you don't want to be chasing some of these guys in week 15, 16, 17. If you're able to pick them up or potentially draft them, knowing that there's a chance down the road that there could be an opportunity to have one of these guys on your team.
Okay. Well, you skipped ahead to my last question, but now I'll make it my second question. Do you like to handcuff your running back or a running back that is not on your fantasy team? Dave, you good?
I hope I'm good.
All right, why don't you kick it off? Do you prefer handcuffing your running back, a running back that's not on your fantasy team, or maybe both, or neither?
It depends on who the handcuff is. If I'm spending my first round pick on Dalvin Cook, I am going to be interested in getting Alexander Mattison just in case. If I'm drafting Saquon Barkley, I don't really want anything to do with Devontae Booker unless it's a deeper league. There are going to be some, I don't even know if we can call them backup running backs, but like 1B running backs. I think the kind of running backs that Jamie was just talking about that I would be interested in getting past the midway point in my draft if they're there. Kenyon Drake, James Conner are going to be two of them, where the value I would think would be good if they were put in a position to get a lot of work. But like Jamie said, you've got to be patient with them. It's situational when it comes to handcuffing your running backs. I don't think it's something that you have to do. And I would have told you last year, you don't have to bother doing it with Christian McCaffrey because you're not going to get a running back who's as good as Christian McCaffrey if McCaffrey were to go down. And it turned out that Mike Davis was pretty darn good for the first half of his time as a starter for Carolina. So it really just depends on how deep your league is, how engaged you are in making waiver moves and trades. And if you don't want to be bothered, then probably the safest thing to do is to get at least one handcuff.
Yeah, Jake, more likely to handcuff your running back or one that's not on your fantasy team?
Neither, just because I'm going for depth. I don't really care when I'm drafting whether or not I own the player or somebody else does. I just look for kind of what the second point that Dave was touching on is I'm not getting backups on my bench like Rex Burkhead. Like, okay, even if another injury happens, what is he going to get me 7 instead of 5 points per game? And who knows when those points will happen. Like, you could go down with the Frank Gores and the Adrian Petersons and all these backups that even if they step forward, you might get one good game out of 4 or 5. So I want guys who potentially step into that lead role, which that's kind of what we're talking about with handcuffs is people who have that opportunity. But that's all it is for me. If it's somebody else's, cool. If it's mine, that's fine. But I'm not going to reach for my own because sometimes if you look at it too, is to go to the Cook-Madison comparison. There's no guarantee, as Dave said, that Madison's going to come anything close. And even if he does, it's still a net one running back. If you get somebody else's and they go down, you get 2.
Well, that's right. So then hypothetical, let's say you drafted Dalvin Cook and your turn is up and you're deciding between Alexander Mattison and Tony Pollard. Who are you going to take?
For situational, I'll probably go Pollard. And it's because if I valued both of this, if Zeke and Cook both went down, I'd rather have Pollard. And that's how I would look at it.
Okay.
You want to maximize your value. So it's not like they're both going to get hurt, Cook and Zeke in week 8, and then you're picking between Madison and Pollard. The hope is, and obviously this is the hope for you as the Pollard manager, is that if Zeke suffers an injury, it's week 3 or week 4. And so now you have Pollard for an extended length of time while still having Cook.
Okay, but how about you, Jamie? So same
that can
question.
Work in reverse though, too, can't it?
Yeah, of course.
100%. But again, you're trying to maximize your team's value. So Jake said, you're only getting the Vikings running back if Cook goes down. You could be getting the Vikings running back and the Cowboys running back if Zeke gets hurt.
All right.
Right, but you could have no running back if you get
Could have no
Pollard
running back.
and Zeke is the MVP and Dalvin Cook goes down in week 2.
You know my answer to that. I'm always going to try and swing for the fences as opposed to get a bunt.
It's not a bunt. I don't like that.
You know what I mean? I'm going extremes. You'd rather have the situation of I want to maximize my team's potential the most way possible, the best way possible. And so
you got to believe in the backup.
I'm trying to get 2 starting running backs on my roster as opposed to 1.
Yeah. You just have to believe that the running back will be 75% of the starter. And if you believe that, then you should prioritize it. Yes, I would take Madison over Pollard in the situation you put out there, Adam.
If you had Cook, you would take Madison.
Yeah, I would take him over Pollard.
Yeah, I'm taking Pollard 10 out of 10.
Yeah, so I think we're split here because I would take Madison too. So Dave and I are old school. By the way, Jamie, if you were bunting, I would throw up and in on you like so fast.
Dude, what?
I'd throw up and in. I'd brush you back. If you were bunting,
Probably so.
Throw up and in.
Yep.
You would throw a 15-mile-an-hour ball over his head.
No, I would get Strager to do it. I'd get the
I
college
think
pitch.
you needed
my
the-
8-year-old to strike you out.
You got to make sure you say up and in. I was like, throw up on them. Like, what?
I said
I was like,
I
you're
said
gonna
up.
puke on him?
I did. Oh, see, that's a
I mean,
phrase.
given the
that
things you've done to
people-
me in the past, that wouldn't be surprising.
All right, let's talk tight end strategy here because I remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like a few years ago we had you on. You're talking about how you're not one to reach for tight ends. Is that true, Jake?
Right.
Still that way?
Is true.
Still that way?
It is still that way. And it's the same thing I said then and I'll say today. I'm not going to call anybody crazy to do it. If you want to take Kelsey at the end of the first round, I'm not saying you're stupid to do it. You can draft however you want. The reason I just never have done it, and I still will never do it, is because Kelsey has to have last season or 2 years ago, even if he has, which was a great season, the season in between where it was 1,200 some odd yards and 5 touchdowns. It was like late second round value, which again, it's not a bad thing. And people will say, well, you locked in that advantage at the position. It's just for me, we're talking about running backs, talking about what the elite wide receivers are in that same range. I don't like passing on that for somebody who has to bring back equal value or else you're losing a lot. So I get it. I get the leg up at the position, but I still think that if you're smart enough, you look at Darren Waller, you look at Kittle if he's going back in the third round this year, some other options that could step up in the third, fourth, fifth round where you still have a leg up. It's just not Kelsey's leg up. And you don't run that risk of what you've lost on your investment elsewhere. So again, I understand it. I see it work. I actually have done it in a 2 tight end league, but that's a different story. In a 1 tight end league, I just won't ever be the person to do it.
Okay, who then this year are the mid-round tight ends that you would be looking at if you're going to pass on Kelsey?
So I think that's the interesting thing. Is like I would always avoid that second tier because it seems like that's the tier that bombs every single season
Right.
is the 4th, 5th round pick. So I would I like to get guys that had the excitement, had the hype, and then bounce back for the next season. And then, you know what? I'll even say this. I know we're not talking about him, but I will be somebody who drafts Kyle Pitts as a tight end 1.
Oh, yeah.
I will. It's the fact that, we always talk about the tight ends rarely hit, but they have. And they're not always first rounders that hit, but even Heath Miller back in his rookie season hit as a tight end 1 that year. That's way back. All we need you to do is get 550 yards and about 6 or 7 touchdowns. And that's the floor to be a tight end 1. So I will say I have a lot of Pitts. I think Ingram's going to get a lot of hate and deservedly so for what he did last year. But if the Giants really are going to take off this year and Ingram's going to fall down to 8, 9, 10, it'll be somebody like that. I look for the value in coming back off the past season.
Okay, guys, are you more bullish on on Kelsey at the end of round 1 and then maybe Waller and Kittle in round 2 compared to Jake?
If it's late
I
round
think-
2. Yeah.
I think if you're at the back end of the first round and there's, and your intent was, I want to come out of my first 2 picks with a top 10 running back and still one of those guys are sitting there. That's the type of move I think you make. So if you're picking 9, 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range, and you see like 5 or 6 guys that you just, okay, this guy could be the top guy of that group or the top guy of that tier, however you want to phrase it, then, it's not a bad idea to pair that player with Kelsey. I mean, for me, Waller and Kittle are going to be end of second, early third, depending on format.
Yep.
So I wouldn't take those guys at that spot. It's only Kelsey in the first round, but I think Jake said it best. If you're so inclined, like, obviously Chris Towers is bullish on the 3 tight ends, just somebody who's, on our show. So Chris is saying all 3 of those guys should be first round picks. Now, clearly, I think most of us disagree with that, but he's going with the philosophy of get a difference maker at that spot, and that's fine. But I think if you're doing that, you're kind of putting yourself in a position of what happens if they don't do it, and you kind of alluded to that, Jake, with Kelsey. But you think about last year, and even the year before, what happened to Zach Ertz, what happened to Kittle with the injuries, and you factor in
Mark Andrews
guys, Andrews, we know what happened to them. If they don't hit, then you're not getting a difference maker. And that's even the worst case scenario. It's not getting a late second round value or third round value. You're getting a 5th, 6th, 7th round value, and you really hampered your team.
But to be fair, that can also happen with running backs as well, where you can take a running back in late round 1, and then that guy doesn't end up performing. He performs like an RB2.
But most people in your
team.
league are taking those running backs early. So you're kind of at a same, even playing field. If you're taking those tight ends early and they fail, then you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage.
Right. Like if you're really scared about that, then you're probably looking at going wide receiver in late round 1, and you take somebody like Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill, and you hope like hell that they perform like they did last year. And just to Jake's point, last year, Kelce averaged 20.3 PPR points per game. Hard to believe he's going to do that again. That would have been good for running back 4 in PPR leagues last year. If he does that again, then he's going to be worth the late first round pick. There's no question about it.
He's going to be worth an early first round
pick.
He's
in
early.
Sure.
In early 2018, rather, not early 2018. This is all of 2018, 17.9 PPR points per game. That was good for RB9. That's really also good. You would take that with a late first round pick.
Yeah, so why can't he do that again? I mean, he's done it 2 of the last 3 years.
What happened in 2019 where he still had a really good year.
Mahomes got hurt that year.
15.4. He did. That's true. So if it's as simple as Mahomes staying healthy, then I think you can have the confidence to take Kelce in late round 1.
And that's my question, right? Because if Kelce can do what he's done 2 of the last 3 years, then he's a first round pick. We're talking, I just looked at the last 10 years of PPR scoring. There have been 8 instances of a tight end getting 260 fantasy points, scoring 260 fantasy points. He's crushed that 2 of the last 3 years. He's been around 300 fantasy points 2 of the last 3 years. Last year was 313 points in only 15 games. So 260 points, that's Graham twice, Gronk twice, Kelce twice, Ertz and Waller. And he's just blown that figure away. He's had 2 of the best tight end seasons ever in the last 3 seasons. So following up just real quick, should we be expecting 2018 Kelce, which was incredible, but it was 297 points in 16 games. 2019 Kelce, which wasn't worth the first round pick as Jake said, or 2020 Kelce, which was the best version, played only 15 games and scored 313 PPR fantasy points. Jake, if you were going to bet on the closest outcome to 18, 19, or 20 Kelce, what would it be?
It would be 2018. Part of the concern, and I know he's not super old yet, but you're talking about a lot of wear on him at this point of his career too, and he's been amazing. And I know that young 30s is not it's not the 30 running back cliff, but I would say expect the 2018, and if that to you is still worth drafting in the first round and we can get close to 2020, that's what it is. Again, that's the point. Again, to go back, Jamie said it again, it's if he falls off, even if he gets hurt like Kittle last year, it's so much bigger of a drop that you lost because you also ignored running back early. So it just double hits you. If he stays healthy, plays 16, Patrick Mahomes is out there every single week, then as Jamie and Dave agreed with, he's a top 5 pick.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm trying to find the stat, and I don't have it, but I did want to look at Travis Kelce without Sammy Watkins. For what it's worth, targets did go up for him and Tyreek Hill 3 straight seasons whenever Watkins hasn't played, but I don't have those stats on me right now, so I'll try to get them. All right, next question. Jamie, I'm going to let you kick this off. How bullish will you be on this year's rookie wide receiver class? And the way I want to frame it is even when rookie wide receivers are good, they're not often great. Last year was an exception, though. Last year we had 3 top 24 rookie wide receivers. Justin Jefferson was right around wide receiver 7. Claypool was around 16th. CeeDee Lamb was about 21st or so. But we've only had 3 top 12 rookie wide receivers in the last 6 seasons. We usually get 1 top 20 guy. Last year we had 3 top 24. And this year's wide receiver class is so exciting and so highly touted, Jamie. How bullish will you be on this year's rookie wide receiver class?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could also extend it to T. Higgins and Brandon Ayuk, how they performed last year as well. Higgins with a healthy Joe Burrow, and then Ayuk, missed some time, but his points per game, especially down the stretch, were just amazing. So I think you have to look at them as, first, we got to figure out their landing spots. So we're talking redraft leagues, and that will determine, what their target share will be, what their quarterback situation will be. All those things have to come into play. But at the same time, I think once you start to get your, I don't know if anybody's drafting Jamar Chase or Smith or Waddle as starting fantasy receivers. But if you're going to say that they could be number 3 receivers, if you love your top 2, that's the type of gamble you make, because as Dave said earlier, the position is so deep that you can get 2 starters or 3 starters in 3 receiver league and then afford yourself to, get some of these veteran guys or, retread guys that most people are going to say, I don't want them, but they still end up having some relevance for you when we're talking closer to the double-digit rounds, because they're going to be available and they're going to be sitting there. So I think if you're looking at them as you want to take a swing for the fence, it's really as a number 3 receiver, and we're probably talking as early as maybe round 6.
Jake, what do you think of round 6? Is that too early for the rookie wide receivers, the best ones?
No, I was legitimately going to say around 6 or 7, and Jamie stole my other point too. I was going to bring up Higgins and Ayuk and the fact that they were inside the top 36. So if you look at it, yeah, it's a great class. I was actually surprised going back and looking at the ADP from last year and seeing that the highest was CeeDee Lamb, and he was still around the 9th round. And I know some people are going to be sitting at home, not my league, but that's the average for the ADP, and see the guys behind him. And you go down the list, and T. Higgins was basically undrafted. You look at the biggest point being what Jamie just said. I'm going to echo it and repeat it. Landing spot is key. And I'm going to go back to somebody, I don't know if you can see. Oh, I covered up my Michael Thomas jersey because I had baseball up. But Michael Thomas, when he came out, he wasn't the best receiver in that class on a talent situation. The situation itself where he landed was the fit. That's Justin Jefferson last year. Justin Jefferson wasn't the best 2 or 3 wide receivers in the class. The situation helped them tremendously. So if we have Chase, Smith, and Waddle go to tough situations, and all of a sudden we're looking at somebody like Kadarius Toney, and he's going to be a starting slot from day one, something like that could push him in front. But to what Jamie said, that if he's your 3rd, 4th wide receiver, draft those guys because they have the potential to finish inside the top 25 in that 6th, 7th round. Don't wait till the 9th if you want to make sure you get them. So yes, you can be bullish, but smart at the same time.
So just to give you an example, Adam, Jamar Chase could go to the Bengals at 5 with a quarterback he knows and a situation that seems a little bit more appealing. He goes to the Dolphins. That's not as appealing. Now, Tua may make him great, and he may be great with Tua. He may get more targets with Tua. But this is where, like, the decision comes in. So that, Chase goes maybe round 6 with the Bengals, maybe round 7 or 8 with the Dolphins. That's the type of thing I think that could sway where he ends up just based on, or where his fantasy value ends up just based on the landing spot of 2 teams that are looking at.
You could also go to the Lions at 7th overall, and that'll
You go to the
make
Lions 7th overall too.
Yeah.
Would that make him worse? Why would that make him worse?
No, he's gonna dominate target.
Right. Jared Goff is not a complete
He might
clown.
get good volume.
Yeah, Jared Goff is not a completely incapable quarterback. He gives
Jared Goff made Robert Woods and
absolutely
Cooper Kupp
because he threw like a bunch
he's
of
going to be a
passes
turd for those guys.
Well, but 3 years ago during their Super Bowl season, Jared Goff was throwing the ball downfield. He became more of a short area thrower recently. I don't know. People are so down on Jared Goff. He's capable of making a wide receiver good. He's not
this
capable
isn't
of
really
winning
a
the Super
Jared
Bowl.
Goff is good or bad question. This is Jared Goff
right.
Or hurt Jamar Chase fantasy wise.
Well, I mean, you can look at the opportunity to throw Smith or Waddle on the Eagles potentially, and we're looking for a deep, amazing threat on that team, and Hurts now being the full-time quarterback. And I mean, you go back to, I think that's a good comparison also to bring into this is Jalen Reagor. I'm going to have a lot of Jalen Reagor because everybody hates the guy after not doing much in his rookie season. So remember, the Reagors, the Henry Ruggs of the world, can be, that's the floor, is that just everything goes wrong, nothing ever hits, and that's why a 6th, 7th rounder makes sense. Jerry Jeudy, there's another great one.
And I just want to point out, I talked about this on FFT and 5. Wide receivers, rookie wide receivers, it's almost a guarantee they're going to get off to a slow start. Justin Jefferson had a 1,400-yard season, one of the best rookie seasons ever. He had 70 yards on 6 targets in his first 2 games. So I think adding a 17th game, it's not a huge deal, but it maybe softens the blow a little bit if you draft a rookie wide receiver and he gets off to a slow start. Well, you've got an extra week where maybe he's performing like a stud later in the year. So I think that might make me a little bit more bullish on them.
Dave said too, the depth. If you take one in the 6th or 7th round, the wide receiver that if you pass over and take a rookie, the wide receiver sitting there, that's the veteran, you're probably still going to find that same type and level of veteran 2 rounds later because how deep the position is.
Okay, by the way, since everybody's just dying to know, 2018, Travis Kelce, 7 games without Sammy Watkins, on pace for 1,360 yards, 119 catches, 162 targets. Last year, 5 games without Watkins, not including Week 17 when Mahomes didn't play, on pace for nearly 1,600 yards, 141 targets, 13 touchdowns. So he and Tyreek Hill, huge bumps without Watkins.
Don't draft Mark Andrews.
All right, let's see. What's next here? Backup quarterback strategy. Dave, why don't you kick it off? Do you have a backup quarterback strategy? I want this many quarterbacks. If I draft a top whatever, I don't want a backup quarterback. What do you got?
Question, because every year the guy
Yeah, here we go again.
Oh
Dave's
man.
not allowed to talk about quarterbacks anymore.
Why? What happened? I'm out
That's what
again.
it is.
Yeah.
You're the glitchy quarterback guy.
I'm the glitchy quarterback. Let's talk about kickers instead.
We'll try it again,
He's
Dave.
Mitch
That's when Jake
Trubisky.
becomes the glitchy guy.
Yeah.
All right. So last year, Aaron Rodgers was the. Is it going out again?
Yeah.
Uh,
Dave, how many quarterbacks do you want on your roster?
Sign language, usually one.
Okay. JB, how many quarterbacks do you want
Man,
on
I
your
had a
roster?
good point too. This sucks.
All right, try again. Last time.
No, I'm not even going to bother because it's definitely going to go out.
No, it's perfect now.
Just text us and we'll read it for you. I think, like I told you on F15.5, Adam, if we have deep rosters, it's not a bad idea. If you have a league with deeper rosters, it's not a bad idea to carry multiple quarterbacks. Not necessarily just because you want to have a backup to play. That clearly helps if the matchup's right. But, it could be trade bait. Or, as we have seen, sometimes guys get hot at the right time and you can, sort of change if your guy or, swap it out if your guy is not putting up good numbers. But, the type of number 2 quarterbacks that I'm going to draft, if I'm so inclined to do so, it's going to be whoever the Saints guy is, because I think that has that player is going to have a high ceiling. It's going to be, if Tua does get Jalen Smith, Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts, and hopefully he, benefits from just an additional target that could play at that level. Trevor Lawrence, depending on what the draft unfolds, the fantasy draft unfolds for him, those type of guys, especially if I take, Jalen Smith or somebody or Jalen Hurts. What am I? Jalen Smith. If I take a Jalen Hurts or
JB, your internet's cutting out.
Who's someone unproven and has a chance to, maybe fail.
Okay. Jake, what do you got? Fantasy philosophy on quarterbacks, backups?
Yeah, I think that the thing with the fantasy community is easy to be like, oh, don't even draft a second quarterback. You can find them all the time. But you look at your most average leagues, and that's not talking down to me. I'm just talking about that's the majority, average leagues, a majority of leagues out there. At least half the league is drafting a second quarterback. So to say that, I'm more on the Jamie side is ideally, sure, I would like to get Mahomes or Dak and just say, I'm good. I don't need to worry about a second quarterback because I don't want to have the decision if the guy breaks out. But I think there's just more value in most leagues where a potential trade chip or that breakout, or maybe something goes wrong with your lead guy and the breakout's the better option. But that's the key, is that I'm always going to draft a breakout. I'm not drafting Kirk Cousins as my second quarterback. I'm drafting one of the rookies potentially. Nobody expected Herbert to do what he did. I'm banking on, maybe this is the year Baker finally clicks for the entire season. Maybe Daniel Jones bounces back in the excitement for Daniel Jones from last year, who was being drafted as a fringe QB1, by the way. Maybe he does it this year. So those are the ones. I don't want the average quarterback getting 16 points a week. That's not ever going to be my backup quarterback.
You'll find that guy on the waiver wire. That's the thing.
Right.
It's, it's also like, to Jake's point, you have to know your league. If everybody in your league is taking 2 quarterbacks, you could either follow suit and take the breakout guy and just sit on him, and hopefully that becomes, the league winning type of quarterback for you, or you just avoid it and don't take the Kirk Cousins, or like Adam's going to take a lot of Jared Goff. Obviously,
No,
you don't have to necessarily go that route.
No.
But those guys will be available to you. You want to take somebody who, just keep the phrase in mind, difference maker. Who's a difference maker? Who could be somebody that eventually becomes Justin Herbert or that type of quarterback down the road? And that's the type of player that you sit on, and hopefully he becomes that middle to the end of the year.
I just get kind of annoyed when people my colleagues give me a hard time for taking. Sometimes I'll take 3 quarterbacks instead of some nothing wide receiver that has almost no chance. Like, well, why didn't you take this guy? Because he has no chance.
You look at the quarterback as more of a blue chip prospect.
Yeah, right.
That's how you have to look at your second QB.
Well, yeah, a second, and if I have enough
then you
spots,
get to bye weeks or injuries, and you're dropping that guy.
Probably dropping him, but you're probably dropping that whoever you're taking. Then anyway, probably dropping him. So yeah, I looked at. This is kind of interesting. I was disappointed in the outcome of this research because I wanted quarterbacks to win and they didn't. But I looked at in the past 3 seasons, players picked in rounds 10 or later, according to Fantasy Football Calculator, PPR ADP. Round 10 or later, how many quarterbacks or tight ends finished top 6? And I just look, this is totally arbitrary. I made my own numbers, but how many running backs, wide receivers
A's or stats.
finished top 18? So a top 18 running back or wide receiver, a top 6 quarterback or tight end. Which position do you think had the most picks in rounds 10 or later that finished in the top 6 at quarterback or tight end, or top 18 at running back or wide receiver?
You told us it
Running
wasn't quarterbacks.
It wasn't quarterback.
Running
Running back. Dave, what do you think?
I didn't pay attention to a word you just said, so I'm sorry. I can't put in a guess here. I'll say wide receiver. Just
You're wrong. All right. In the last
I'm
3
shocked.
seasons, players drafted in round 10 or later that finished top 6 at quarterback or tight end, or top 18 at running back or wide receiver. There were 5 quarterbacks. There were 7 running backs. There were 5 wide receivers. And there were 9 tight ends. 3 per year. So that's pretty crazy. Kittle, Ebron, Cook, and Hooper in 2018. Waller and Andrews in 2019. Tunyon, Logan Thomas, and Hawkinson in 2020. They all finished top 6. That's wild. I was a little annoyed because at quarterback, you think, oh, how about Lamar Jackson in 2019? Jameis Winston, 2019. They were actually round 9 picks, so they didn't quite make the cut. And Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers were round 8 and 9 picks, so they didn't make the cut in 2020. But in our leagues, Aaron Rodgers was definitely round 10 or later. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Quarterbacks 5, running backs 7, wide receivers 5, tight ends 9. But
How did those guys do with Sammy Watkins?
but here's what I'll say. For the wide receivers and the running backs, you don't get, even the ones that made that cut of top 18, you don't get this kind of impact that you get from the quarterbacks and the tight ends. You get guys like J.D. McKissick and Mike Davis, and James Robinson is probably the best example. Nyheim Hines made this list. James Conner, great example. Phillip Lindsay, Nick Chubb, once they got rid of Carlos Hyde in 2018. But the quarterbacks could be just total league winners in that late in the draft. So I'm probably going to take more backup quarterbacks than anyone, but it depends on roster spots. Okay, we have one more question here, and I'm going to give you all 10 seconds to answer it, and then we'll move on. When is it acceptable to draft a DST? Let's start with our guest, Jake. DST.
Final round. Just look for the best week 1 matchup and move on from there.
Okay, Dave? Dave?
make an exception for the second to last pick.
Second, that's fine. That's all we got what we needed. Jamie?
The last round or the second to last round, depending on if you have kickers.
Okay, you guys are crazy. It's just crazy. But okay. Phrases that people screw up. Jamie, did you think of any?
I looked it up as I was walking upstairs before the show.
You looked up my Twitter feed?
No, I looked up phrases that people screw up.
Okay, what'd you find?
I found people say I could care less.
Yes.
I couldn't care less.
Big one. Yep.
For all intensive purposes.
Yep.
Yep.
It's for all intents and purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Could have, should have. Could have, should have. Not could have, should have.
Okay.
By purpose, on accident. It's on purpose, by accident.
Who says by purpose?
I don't know. And a favorite of Heath Cummings, nipped it in the butt.
He says that?
It's nipped in the bud.
Also on Twitter, irregardless. People say irregardless. Just say regardless.
Can we talk about the fact that the English or whoever makes the dictionary got so tired of it that they threw it in the dictionary?
Irregardless?
Yes.
Yeah. They just are like, fine. Whatever, have it your way.
By the way, I'm so mad Jamie said that one until I'll admit it. Until about 3 or 4 years ago, I thought it was intensive. I got that one wrong. I didn't know it was intents and purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Because everybody says it.
I didn't know that it's worse comes to worst. Right? If worst comes to worst. I think I used to say worst comes to worst.
Worst comes to worst.
It's worse comes to worst.
Yes.
Yeah. And Ryan Dugan said there's a phrase people say Adam Azer is awesome, and he thinks that is wrong.
Definitely wrong.
Yeah. And chomping at the bit, it is actually champing at the bit. But that's another one where people said
I think
it.
you pronounce it the same way. It's just spelled differently.
No, it's champing. Horses champ. it's a horse racing term. But it's been said so wrong for so long, like irregardless, that it's just
well, that's the other thing coming. It's you have another think coming.
Really?
Yes, that's on your
supposed to be
another think coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, you're this many days old.
Yeah.
There's like a few that are like more spelling than they are. Like this one, for example, that I found, sleight of hand.
It's like SLE.
SLEIGH.
Yeah. No, that's just dumb. I refuse
And
to
this
accept
one is
that one.
probably we all butcher. One in the same is really one and the same.
One and the same.
Oh, yeah, I guess
Can we
that
talk
makes
about
sense.
the sports world and the fact that complimentary and complimentary are different when you're talking about a complimentary back?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Good stuff. Dave had some good suggestions too, but he was just cutting out the whole time. So. We're going to take a break here on Fantasy Football today. We got some news and notes and your emails when we come back. We are back with Jake Ciely here, and there are just a few things I have to promote real quick. Make sure you're watching CBS Sports HQ. It's a big week on CBS Sports HQ. We kick off each morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. It's 24/7, but we got all the new stuff for you. 8 a.m. Eastern. HQ is always your home ahead of the evening's action with live picks from the best analysts and cappers in the sports world each day at 6 p.m. Eastern. But look, we're getting closer to the NFL draft, so make sure you're leaving HQ on all day for the latest NFL news, rumors, and mock drafts. Check out HQ on your computer, cbssports.com, or on the CBS Sports app on your mobile phone or your TV. It's always free and it's always on. And we've got a lot of great podcasts. If you go to cbssports.com/podcasts, you can see our full list. David Sampson hosts Nothing Personal. He's a World Series winning executive. He ran a Major League Baseball team for 18 years, and he's really funny and he's great. I've done a lot of shows with David Sampson. Awesome personality and has a great podcast. So he's got a daily show dedicated to giving you the truth about sports, business, and entertainment. Step inside the front office and really get to know sports. Nothing Personal with David Sampson is available every weekday wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember, it's just business. It's nothing personal. So Pittsburgh is leaning toward drafting a running back in the first round. We saw that report come out over the weekend. Jake, if they draft, you can pick Harris, Etienne, whoever you want. Give me a round where you take them in fantasy.
I'll take them on the turn, first, second. And you tell me Harris, it's funny, I was just talking about this with a buddy last night at a birthday party. I said I could see them taking Harris, and if Harris is there, I would put him, and I went down my rankings and ran through my running backs, and I stopped at 10. He'd be RB 10 if it's Najee Harris on the Steelers. He's that good. Etienne, probably a little bit behind that, just because I think they spell him a little bit more, given his ability, but I still think he's great. But both of those running backs would be fringe RB1s for Etienne. Harris locked into the RB1 conversation, so you tell me at the turn. Just put it in the situation of look where James Robinson, if we knew what he was going to do, and he did last year, he would have been taken at the turn around one.
Offensive line makes me nervous there.
And that's understandable. It's not the worst though.
No, but it's bottom half.
That's not a quarterback. You flipped that.
We got enough there.
Did you?
Yeah, we did. It was bottom half and then
bottom
out.
Quarter.
Okay. So thank you for filling in the blank there. Our William Hill odds for the third pick. All right, we don't know who the third pick's going to be. We're pretty sure we know who the first two picks are going to be. San Francisco on the clock. William Hill odds are Justin Fields minus 140, Mac Jones plus 130. Trey Lance was plus 400. Now he's up to plus 200. Jamie, which bet would you make? Fields minus 140, Mac Jones plus 130, Trey Lance plus 200.
Well, today's Trey Lance day, so it's going to be, the rumors are going to be it's all about Trey Lance, who's apparently getting his workout run by the 49ers. So I would right now put my money on Trey Lance, but I think it's going to be Justin Fields.
All right. Colts wide receiver Zach Pascal signed his second round tender. The Falcons signed Cordarrelle Patterson and waived Ito Smith. Dave, you there?
They deemed him a running back.
Does this matter to you? Is this fantasy relevant?
Not yet. If they go through the whole draft without adding another running back, then maybe. But I'd be stunned if they did that. That's where I want a running back to go. That's where I want Najee Harris to go.
Atlanta. Seattle signed defensive end Aldon Smith. Chicago signed wide receiver Marquise Goodwin to a one-year deal. The Cardinals signed linebacker Dennis Gardeck, who is a really good story for them and had a really nice year. Cleveland released Sheldon Richardson. I've been raving about their defense. Well, they have now lost both of their starting defensive tackles from 2020, Larry Ogunjobi and Sheldon Richardson. They saved a lot of money in doing it, but it's not a good thing. And Jake, Melvin Gordon said he is sick of being overlooked. And what kind of workload are you expecting for Melvin Gordon as of right now before the NFL draft? What are you thinking about Melvin Gordon?
I say pretty similar to what we saw last year even with Philip Lindsay being hurt or when he was out there. Melvin Gordon was pretty steady, but I think at the point of what we know about Melvin Gordon is part of the reason he's overlooked is because he's above average. He's not amazing. And if you look at the numbers, if you watch him play, he should be better between the tackles. He's really good. He's just not amazing. So I would put him in the same conversation, same workload as we saw last year. And whatever that stands out to be, it's an RB2. It's a solid RB2, but it's kind of a uninspiring RB2, honestly.
Okay. We got to read some emails. fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. By the way, that's the letter I, not EYE. fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. Phrase that people get wrong all the time. All right, 12-team, 3-wide receiver, non-superflex league, full PPR. Redraft league voted last year to allow us to keep 2 players, but it will cost us the amount we paid for them at our salary draft, and we can only opt to keep each player for a maximum of 2 seasons. $100 salary, and who should I keep? Which 2 should I keep? Hayden Hurst for 7. I say no. George Kittle for 14. It's PPR, guys. Kamara for 28. A.J. Brown for 10. And Keenan Allen for 4. And I'm going to go ahead and forward these emails to you, Jake, because I know it's a lot to not have it in front of you. So give me a moment.
No, I got it. I got my 2 answers.
All right, go ahead. Kittle 14, Kamara 28, A.J. Brown at 10, Keenan Allen for 4. What are your 2?
I was originally going to have Kittle in there, but when you said A.J. Brown in a $200 league, which still be, a super discount at 20, and then you throw in Keenan Allen at 4, both of them top 10 wide receivers. Volume is back for Keenan Allen again with Herbert. And to go back to A.J. Brown, I actually think A.J. Brown is going to hit the top 5 this year now that Corey Davis is gone and Jonnu. And I know they'll probably add somebody still through the draft, but that volume, are you talking about can I get 130 targets for A.J. Brown? Top 5.
All right, Allen Brown.
Receivers for the same price as Kittle.
Right.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Adam from an Olympic city north of the border, Dave.
An Olympic city. Where did they have the Olympics? Is it Toronto?
No.
Montreal is where they
out
had
west. No, Vancouver. It was
Okay.
Vancouver, right?
I wouldn't have got that either. I don't know my Canadian trivia.
I'm pretty sure.
Olympic trivia.
Schrager, look it up. A half PPR.
Yeah, it was 2010. Yeah.
Vancouver, right?
That was like 10 years ago.
It was like 11 years ago. Okay, half PPR, 1 quarterback dynasty league. I have no picks in our rookie free agent draft until the 4th round, and I don't have my first next year either. I sold out to win it all last year, and I finished 3rd. I feel like I have a strong team, but I also feel like last year was my best chance at a championship as Adams, Hill, and James Robinson are due to regress. Should I flip Devontae Adams or someone else for the 101 and other firsts or assets, or stay the course? Jamie, what do you think? Devontae Adams, would you give him up for 101 and some other assets, or would you keep him?
I mean, it's hard not knowing what the rest of his roster is, to determine fully how good his team is. But, if you're starting with your top 3 players being Adams, Hill, and Robinson, that's a pretty good place to start.
Well, hold on. I'll tell you. He's got Wilson. He's got Taylor, Swift, James Robinson. Yeah. Damian Harris. He's got Taylor and Swift. He's got A.J. Brown and Tyreek Hill. Yeah, he's got a good team.
Yeah, I'm probably not. I'd probably try and run it back if you can, or maybe make a smaller move to try and, see what you can get into the 2nd round if you can. But, I mean, you have A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, and Devontae Adams, and then those 3 young running backs. It's like, why would you try and, break that up? You still have a team that's going to win now, has a chance to win now, and a chance to win in the next 2 or 3 years as well.
I would see what the other considerations are with 101, though. If someone's going to overpay for Adams and it just seems like it's an obvious overpay, then your team will get even younger, and you can absorb that loss of Devontae Adams for a year.
I don't think you have to. It's not a need trade. It's
Agreed.
A luxury trade.
The other assets have to be equitable to a first as well. Like, it's not 1 first is not enough for Adams.
Okay.
Vancouver in 2010, Calgary in 1988, Montreal in 1976.
Oh, okay.
And the Montreal logo looks like a middle finger.
Does it?
Yeah.
He probably meant the 1976 games. That is totally my bad.
I forgot about that logo. I know what you're talking about, too.
I've got to Google image this. This is from Kevin in a city in Connecticut, Dave.
Stanford.
Yeah. Hey, George, Thomas, Teddy, and Abe. I think that was from the 85 Bears. 10-team Dynasty Superflex League, half PPR. I am being offered Daniel Jones and Myles Gaskin. This is a Superflex League. Daniel Jones and Myles Gaskin for Darnold Schwarzenegger and Miles Sanders. Would you guys rather have Daniel Jones and Gaskin or Sam Darnold and Miles Sanders?
Darnold and Sanders.
Just for Sanders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's for all intents and purposes. I think we're looking at this is probably Daniel Jones for Darnold and Sanders. That's really what it comes, because I think everybody's expecting that even if Gaskin's the lead from day one, I'm expecting them to draft somebody and he won't be the lead by the middle of the season.
It's just strange though, because Gaskin was pretty good for them.
He was,
Yeah,
and I'm a Gaskin guy. I just feel like he was the, all right, we got more than we expected. He's still not our answer kind of feel.
Yeah, but this running back class, how many running backs are really that good? I don't think it's a very deep class. So if they don't take a running back in the first or second round, are they going to take somebody who's actually going to be able to replace Myles Gaskin?
I think so. I think you look at both UNC kids. I think both of them were better than Gaskin. I think you can make a case for Herbert from Virginia Tech, and I think you could even say Sermon from Ohio State. I think all four of them, if they got, they're probably going to be day 2, maybe even day 3 running backs in the third round. But any of those, again, probably don't step in as the lead from day 1. But you tell me talent comparison wise, I would take all 4 of those.
Okay. From Ed, a lot depends on the NFL draft, but in a non-PPR league with 3 keepers, which 2 of the 3 would you keep? Non-PPR, Miles Sanders, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Austin Eckler. Sanders, Edwards-Helaire, Eckler. Pick 2.
Eckler and Sanders.
I agree. Even a non-PPR, I agree.
I mean, that's just the first 2 I would take in a non-PPR.
Yeah. Okay. From Bobby, 10-team PPR keeper league. I can keep Dalvin Cook for 1 more year in the 3rd round. I also get to choose first where I want to pick in the draft. Should I go 1 and take McCaffrey or Kamara? Or should I pick 10? It's 10-team PPR league and still get a good running back and a great wide receiver. Or 2 wide receivers. So if you knew you were getting Dalvin Cook in the 3rd round, would you take the 1st pick or the 10th pick?
It's a 10-team league, so what you get in round 2 and round 3 is still going to be amazing. So take 1 overall.
Yeah,
I take 1 overall, especially to Jamie. Yeah, what's going to be great, but also, even though they're great, think about the drop off at the end of the 2nd round for running back versus wide receiver. It's a lot bigger drop off to Christian McCaffrey to whoever's there than you will see at wide receiver.
All right, Jake. So we're done with the show. What do you want to talk about? Candy or kickers or anything like that? Jake says he doesn't favor peanut butter candy, but 3 of his top 5 candies, I believe, had peanut butter in them. So I don't know.
Okay, so out of the top 5, well, one of them technically was a redundancy because I had to separate the difference between Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, the holiday edition, and Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, the actual peanut butter cups, because the holiday editions are the good ones. All of them, especially the eggs.
The holiday editions.
I'll tell Nerds Gummy Clusters. This has been my campaign. They should send me free ones because I've been telling everybody about them. And actually, who was it? I think it was Mina Kimes even tried them and tweeted about them and how amazing they were. Somebody did. Nerds Gummy Clusters. There's your candy list thing you need to try.
Okay, I'm very interested in this. Nerds Gummy Clusters.
They were actually super hard to find for a while because they're flying off the shelves, man.
And where did you have Take 5 on your list?
I think it was somewhere around the teens, 14, 15.
Okay,
Are you
that's
looking
ridiculous.
at the list?
No, I'm not. But Take 5 basically combined every good candy into one awesome thing. It's basically the candy bar to end all candies.
You got to be in the mood for a Take 5. I love them. I think they're underrated, but you got to be in the mood for it. Like sometimes you're just not in the mood for pretzel and nougat and peanuts and caramel. Like sometimes you just want simple.
Nerds Gummy Clusters, you can get them for $2.50 on Walmart, or it looks like $30 on Amazon. $32.
See, that's because they're sold out
on Amazon. Dear God. Jake, thanks for coming on, man. Tell us how we can find you and what you're up to these days.
Yeah, over at The Athletic, my top 85 skill position players for the NFL draft, pre-draft, is up there, and I'll be covering them again and see what we talked about on the show, the landing spots and how that affected afterwards. At All In Kid, you said it. That's the easiest way. I tweet too much, and people probably end up muting me anyway.
Well, that's Jake Ciely at All In Kid. Do not mute him. Just follow him. Dave Richard, Jamie Eisenberg, Ben Schrager. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll come back tomorrow with another edition of Fantasy Football Today. See ya.
Want more of the Fantasy Football Today podcast and nonstop year-round fantasy advice? It's simple. Hit the subscribe button and hang with us all throughout the year.